Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Oakes, and you're listening and watching the smartsocial.com podcast, where we help you keep your kids safe on social media so they can shine online. Our big dream is that your kid someday gets a great job, a career, goes to their dream college, finds their passion so they do great things. And along the way, if they have one of these devices that I'm holding up, an iPhone, an Android, or anything else, that it becomes more of a purpose instead of just a pastime. We want to get your kids passionate about their future and doing great things to develop relationships. I have somebody amazing here for you today, our guest. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our brand new free app. It's called Smart Social in the App Store, the iOS Store, or the Google Play. And it has tons of resources that my staff is building, whether it's, do you want to know if Call of Duty mobile is good or bad for your kids? There's a beautiful guide in there. Snapchat. We give you all these amazing tips. And this podcast episode is in there. It's called Smart Social, 2 words, in the App Store. Wherever you get your apps, you can type it in. It's green. And thank you to the app for basically sponsoring this podcast episode. All right, today, live from Bozeman, Montana, we have Katherine Dayton, and Katherine is the director and owner of Visions Service Adventures, and she's going to talk to us about the lessons that she's learned and her organizations has learned from helping students to take a social media hiatus. Katherine, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Josh.
So thanks for joining us. Now, you do some really cool stuff. Tell us a little bit about your organization, what it does, why kids might want to jump into your organization for a couple weeks and take a little bit of a hiatus. And then I want to dive into the 5 tips that you have for parents and educators listening on how they can guide their kids through a digital detox.
Sure. So I'll start with the first question. Visions started 32 years ago. We were one of the first organizations, one of the very early on organizations that ran community service programs for teenagers. And we have programs around the world, and then also 3 locations in the US, 2 on Montana Indian reservations and 1 in an Alaska Native community. And our model is one where kids and leaders live right in the heart of a local neighborhood. We work with local nonprofit organizations that determine the projects. Most of our service projects are construction and labor. We also do some social service. And so it's a program of cultural immersion and service projects for Visions. Those 2 things really work in tandem with each other. And then the weekends and afternoons are for cultural activities, excursions, and adventures. And like you mentioned, our programs are tech-free. We do carve out time once a week for kids to make a quick call home. But other than that, they don't have their devices.
I love it. And I'm sure you get resistance from that. There are other programs. Parents, please consider this right now. This is a hard thing to do, but anytime we take these devices away and go to a program like this, it is awesome. I'm rooting for this. I don't get paid to root for you, Katherine, but I'm rooting for what you're giving kids. Okay, you've got 5 tips that you've provided for us, and they're available on smartsocial.com. Your first tip, the benefits of a social media hiatus, it's just a little hiatus. It doesn't mean giving it up forever, guys. There are benefits, and here are 5 lessons on how to set up the experience for success. Your first tip is give it time. What do you mean by giving it time?
That, it can be kind of a shock to your system to getting off of the devices, and instead of judging the experience by just those first 24 or 48 hours, to really go without the social media and the devices for at least a couple weeks. Our programs are typically 12 days to 4 weeks, and the longer you remove yourself from social media, from the devices, and feel what it's like to be immersed in something else, the more likely it is that those lessons will stick.
That's awesome. And that's hard, because that ripping that Band-Aid off, basically, of taking this phone away, we all, right? People, if you're listening to this right now, parents right now, and you have this addiction where you're bored and so you pick it up, most of America is like that. And I will be the first to say that I do that probably too much. So giving it time, I definitely take a social media hiatus or a digital detox 1 week out of the year, Catherine. And it turns into 2 weeks because it's so much fun that I go, wait,
Yeah.
I don't need this. And I delete the apps.
Yeah.
And then I only use the phone or maybe some texting, but I don't need as much if I just delete the apps. And
Hmm.
so your tip number 2 is pair it with other changes. What do you mean by that?
To find good substitutes for your time. For our programs, they are so jam-packed with other activities that we actually don't get much resistance from kids not having their devices. First of all, they come knowing that that's part of the equation, but they are so engaged. And I don't know how it works for you when you're having your own social media hiatus, but I would imagine that all sorts of other things manage to fill that time that probably feel more productive and gratifying. And having some plans around that for teenagers, having other activities, especially social activities that they're engaging in, is really helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like pairing with other changes. We call it substituting. You can't just
Mhm.
go off of sugar and say, I'm going to have a
Right.
healthy diet without replacing it with also good things. We have to replace as humans and have a replacement. Okay, your third tip is stay busy. Give us an
Mhm.
idea of how that works.
Yeah, I mean, this is very much in the same vein of what we just talked about, but keeping engaged, having things on the docket. Um, I think a lot of us reach for our tech devices and social media when we've got some downtime, even if we truly shouldn't have that downtime, that there are other things to be doing. So keeping busy, keeping engaged, having projects on the docket.
So good. So good. So we've talked about a few things. Give it time, pair it with other changes, stay busy. The next one's my favorite. And I don't think any of us do enough of this because it really helps to take the feelings, the annoyances, all the good stuff and put it online, put it down on paper. Your fourth tip is journal. Talk to us
Hmm.
about how the benefits of that and maybe any tips you have.
Yeah, taking some time to reflect on your day, your life, where you're going, how you might want to make tomorrow different than today, and reflecting on those things in a pen to paper sort of way, where you are the audience instead of maybe showcasing for everybody who's a friend on social media, and turning it a little bit more inward,
Mm.
and using that time, to think about, and to reflect on what you might want out of your life and your days, that has a very different feel to it than just posting what's hot and new on your social media profile.
Oh, I love that journal. It's so refreshing too. If you do get the chance to do it, especially in a time of anxiety, a time where it's stressful, so students are listening to this or parents, go
Mhm.
back to that pen and paper. We're really big believers in that over here. All right, tip number 5. I like this one the most because if we try and do this on an island, it typically doesn't work. Your tip number 5 is join them. Tell us what do you mean by join them and how do we basically do this together?
Yeah, so this is the call out to parents. And we often have more resistance about our tech-free programs from parents and from kids, because I think there are a lot of parents who like to have that touch base with their kids on a daily or hourly basis. And so tech-free programs like Visions can be an adjustment for parents too. And, if you're doing a social media tech hiatus with kids when they're home, to join them in that. And whether it's, shutting down the devices during the dinner hour and the entire evening and practicing how to be with each other where you're not on your devices. But I think it's hard to ask your kids to go without these things if you are flashing your phone around. And everybody likes to be part of a team when you're doing a new challenge.
I love that. Teamwork is key. Boy, there's a lot in this. This is a huge topic. Now, a
Yeah.
couple a couple things. I was speaking to one of your employees. I think it was Henry, and
Mm-hmm.
he said, I'm speaking to parents right now about the frustration in your industry and the frustration in industries all over the world right now, because there are programs like yours that are tech free, which I love. It's very good for kids. There are competitive programs, parents, that are like, yeah, your kid learns and they get to keep their device and be addicted to it the whole time. And I'm adding the word addicted because when they're out in the woods, when they're volunteering, the only benefit would be to take a photo, a group photo. And there's going to be other people with cameras, like old school Canon, little tiny power shot cameras. My tip for all of you, and I put my opinion in here, and Katherine, you had no idea you're in for this, but go with the tech-free solution whenever possible. Take a little bit of a hiatus. That's why we have this blog. That's why Katherine spends so much time writing an awesome blog post to be on our thing. It's, if you ever have the option to do it with or without, try it without it. You'll never regret it. No one ever says, boy, I'm more tired because I didn't have my device and I was better with my relationships. I mean, we really are encouraging you here at Smart Social to take a little bit of a dive into life, be more present with people, get something done. I remodel my house, and when I take a hiatus from social media, I finished my kitchen and my stairs. It's all kinds of real life things. It could be music and sports or anything else. Katherine, I want to thank you for doing this. Give us one more tip. Is there a story that you have of a student, maybe they dove in and they were nervous, and then at the end of it, it was a different story? Are there any accolades or anything you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, we have loads and loads of those stories every summer where, kids go, it's truly transformative. And we are now getting a lot of people who did the programs 20 years ago and now want to send their own children because what they went through on the program has stuck with them in such solid ways. And for a lot of those people who did the programs 20, 30 years ago and now have their own kids, I think they're seeing how much the devices and social media are, impacting their kids' lives in ways that aren't always positive. And so knowing that there's going to be a social media hiatus, but a specific story, there are so many.
I think I heard of one through your
Yeah.
employee about a kid that was quite video game addicted. And in fact, parents, if your kids are playing Fortnite, Call of Duty Mobile, which is really hot right now and getting more hot, please consider if your kid is playing these apps for more than an hour a day, be careful because shoot them up. What you surround yourself with is a huge part of what you become. There's 4-letter words in there for younger kids, probably not appropriate. Once again, this is my opinion, but my opinion is here to protect parents over the long haul. And really jumping into a program like this, where instead of video games all the time, you're out and about in a new culture, learning about that culture, serving others, hugely important, wildly important. Katherine, I heard about a program, somebody who was just quite addicted to looking at their phone and playing games, and they met friends through this. But by the end of the time at your program, they were just a completely different person.
Yeah.
They became more alive, became more who they were, and they didn't need their phone as much. You see that a lot?
Yeah, it's something different to connect with people face to face, see them day in and day out, working with them, doing activities with them, and building friendships in a way that that isn't virtual. And we have circle meetings that we do every other evening, and it's a time to kind of reflect on the group process, and if there are issues coming up, which inevitably come up when you're living with a group of people, that we sit down and we talk through those together. And it's such a different interaction than some of the insults that are getting flung around on social media, where you don't see the reaction on somebody's face and you don't develop that empathy. So it's We've always been tech free, but it's only been in the last 5 to 10 years that it's been, of course, such an important thing, because before that, kids didn't have these devices. And programs like Visions have always been transformational for the individuals who participate. But I think now, given what kids are getting rid of with leaving their devices, it's even more impactful than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's amazing. Katherine, I want to thank you for joining us here today. This is really great.
Thank you, Josh. Thanks again. Really a pleasure.
For all of you listening, you can download the Smart Social app. That's 2 words, smart plus a space plus social, wherever apps are available. And you can click the links below as well. You can go to Smart Social, where our free resources help 1 million people a year to keep their kids safe on social media, so they can someday build a positive portfolio and shine online. If you want to dive into our subscriptions, it's about $10 a month or $100 a year. Schools, if you're looking for us to be in your community, you can click the links below, set up a free consultation with us. We'll give you more information. I'm forever grateful for all the support we get. Law enforcement officers all over the country are using our resources to keep kids safe from predators. And the addiction that we've discussed on this whole episode is becoming more and more prevalent. So people like Katherine have amazing programs you could go to learn more about really just becoming more of who you are, right? Let's dive in deep, have more friendships, maybe give a hug to people, shake their hand, a real life connection. Parents, if you're out there, I'm giving you permission to parent your kids. Take that screen away. If your kids dislike you once a week, once a month, if they hate you once a month because you've taken the screen away, first of all, I digitally applaud you. You are awesome, because you're parenting your kids rather than worrying about them liking you, and you're building a better kid in the long run. And that's what we're here to support you on. So keep up the great work. Katherine, thank you so much. And to all of you out there, remember to keep it light, bright, and polite. The title of my book, Kids Are Watching. Let's be positive online. We'll see you guys soon. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.